All right, all right. Let me see about the testing because it's been a minute. Let me gain. All right, it's doing good. I'm hearing. Hello, hello, hello. Let me do some last minute things because we're almost there. On. Everything should be good. Excuse me. We turn on things. We check out everything's going. Yeah. Wait, where are my settings? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is so weird. Here we go. Sure looks good. Alright. Okay, okay. Hey, what's going on, guys? Uh, we're doing an audio check because I quite literally don't remember the last time I ever used audio ever again was. Actually, like, it's been so long since I've streamed, I don't remember what's going on, so. Hey, what's going on, y'all? It has been about. I don't know here. What was my last stream? 3 months ago? Was the March conference? Yeah. 3 months ago. And. Yeah. Alright. Sorry, guys. So. Yeah, I just want to kind of have a conversation. Might record some videos. Hey, Gator, how you doing? It's been a minute. I'm sorry, but yeah, I wanted to just kind of show up, do a little last, do a little last second stream because I haven't streamed in a while, and there's some things I want to talk about, but I don't have the I just haven't talked about it also. So what we got on the board? Pretty much just kind of talking about. Just go to reaction capture. Probably just gonna talk about the episode, then talk about this article that ZR that is ZRG posted, and not ZRG. Was it ZRG? I'm sorry. Yeah, that ZRB posted, and just kind of give my thoughts on it a lot and have a discussion. So that's pretty much it. Don't really have much time as I thought I would. I'll be like, oh, I could just do first day, but I gotta take care of something else. So anyway, just give me an update. Like, how's the sound? How's everything going? And then pretty much like once I get like a confirmation, we can go ahead and start. It was also frustrating because man, my internet went out like earlier today, but it's thankfully we're all good. So I just need an update. Everything else is fine. Is that? Let me turn the audio down a bit. But anyway, how y'all been doing? How's life been since we last signed in? Uh, shoot. Life's been both busy and non-busy. I had a lot of car stuff I was working on, but y'all ain't really here for that. We're here for talking about Vanguard. So, I have a question. So, one of the things I want to do is obviously just eventually. Oh, there's a record button. Okay, okay, so I can record that. Let me look at some settings real quick because I want to like make some stuff into a video, recording. And not do that? What? I'll have to fix that later. I just realized I can record on Streamlabs. I just haven't done it, so so yeah, I think so. I don't think I actually kind of want to talk about the episode in a different way. So I might like just do a different separate video for this. But since I'm only running low on time, I'll just say fun episode. But there's a few questions I've got so far. I'm kind of like debating on where I want to wait till episode 6 or just release it this week. I don't know. I'll decide. I'll decide later. So anyway, let's get to the real reason we're here. So, trying to find stable work and trying to hire attorneys. Willing to see my new power. Require myself right now. Let me see. Can I got that? I'm sorry. Well, I hope you find that hope you get that stable work and are able to really, be able to get your willpower back to the way it needs to be, so that you can, so that your life can be in a good spot, right? At the end of the day, I just, overall, I just hope everybody's day and time can always improve in the end. So, again, I hope you were able to find that stable work and get your willpower back to compete and work, I'm sorry, I'm not good at this. Alright. Oh, yes. This will be cool. Alright, so. Dang, okay. That was going crazy. Let us test this recording so that I can start this up. Alright, we're recording. And we are. Alright. Probably should just go to just chatting real quick. Yeah, I'm gonna cut that out. I'm gonna redo the recording. So, alright. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's X. It's been a complete minute since I've done anything. I'm also in the middle of the stream right now, so just a quick update. I am going to try to get my streams back, mostly because I want to make sure that I can still keep my Twitch situation stable and whatnot. But we're here primarily to kind of talk about something very important. Now, a couple weeks ago, back when I talked about the strategy presentation, I wanted to talk about, and more importantly, the update to the Bushiroad Championship Series for this upcoming season. And I wanted to kind of talk about a lot more than just the state of standard or the product updates or the anime right now. And that is really to talk about the state of Vanguard everywhere else. Right, because at this point, standard is probably in the best spot it's been. There's like a few things that probably need to be changed on the upcoming restrictions and whatnot. I think Shiranui needs to get hit. I think there's a few things that need to change in the game to really like balance the power out. But for the most part, I think the format as it is actually pretty strong. It's actually pretty good. Excuse me, not pretty strong, but that's not what I'm here for. But everywhere else, as in V, Premium, Deer Days, is kind of in this weird limbo. And what I mean is, for example, Deer Days received one update about 2 months ago that was half the update. And we still have no idea when we're going to get the other half of said update or any other update at all, because Besides then, like the last update of that was about 3 months ago. So I don't want to like call it just yet, and I'll go into more detail in probably like a separate video. But I'm pretty sure Deer Days is done. Like it is a complete flop, and it's even worse because man, they have done nothing with it at all to try and like get more people to play it and whatnot. They just abandoned it and never really gonna touch it again. I would love to be proven wrong, but you know, it ain't looking too good. That being said, as for VM Premium, if you haven't heard the news, as of right now, V in and of itself is a side event at the BCS tournaments, while Premium is still a competitive level event. I guess you could say it's like a tier 3 event compared to like side event, which I guess you could say is technically tier 2, I guess. If locals is tier 1, tier 2, I don't know how it works. Whatever, however it works, I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm just talking out my ass right now. Excuse my language. But one of the things I was really upset about, and this, if you know me, you know how I feel about the current state of the non-standard formats, the legacy formats. It's that I feel like for the past year and a half they've been mostly neglected. And you're probably telling yourself, well, we got the history collection and we got the premium deck sets, right? We got these right here, you know? And to that I say, yes, those are cool. But considering the fact that for like 4 years prior to the history collection, we were receiving like sets just straight up based on those previous formats. And now all of a sudden we've just been like cold turkeyed out of their form, you know, out of support for those formats. And I think a lot of people were like praying for V's downfall, but without realizing the ripple effect that would have. And really, it's not really a good one if you prefer legacy formats for Cardfight Vanguard. So, and I was gonna make this video. I was gonna like, oh yeah, I'm gonna script it out pretty good and whatnot. But then, good pal ZRG, a content creator, put out an article detailing their personal feelings on the state of the legacy formats, and outside of a few things, mostly kind of hit all the discussions I wanted to talk about. So with that, we're gonna kind of take a look at the actual article. I've already read it, so I'm gonna give my thoughts. We're gonna kind of skim over it and give my personal thoughts. If you want to read the whole thing, it is in this. Oh my goodness. It's been a while. That's how you know it's been a while. Like, it's in the description box below, and you can read it for yourself. Please go support them. Their writing is really great, and I'm like, you should support them, right? So, without that being said, let's get going to it. So, the article is titled "The Decline of VM Premium: A Dereliction of Duty," or "A Dereliction of Duty." I guess that's how you say it. It was posted yesterday, or sometime early this morning, and I wanted to kind of look over it. So, as you can see, this was like the last time these formats ever got direct hard support that wasn't in promos. So let's kind of read together. So, on August 19th, 2022, VCAN Collection Volume 5 and 6 released in the English format, bringing with them the final swath of reverse units, much needed Heal Guardian reprints, and a pair of Steam main support cards that will go on to terrorize 2/3 of the game for far longer than they had any right to. If you don't know, the Steam main deck was a top tier deck in V and Premium. They were really strong. I don't really know what happened in V to nerf them, but I know in Premium they got hit really hard because they needed to, and justifiably so. 2 years later, on July 12th, 2024, the V Premium format was confirmed to only exist as a side event in the BCS 2024 to 2025 competitive season, signaling as formal an end to the format's life outside Japan as it would likely ever receive. I mean, as best you can put it, yeah, outside Japan, and Different Fight did post this in his video, which you can also watch. Is that V was pretty much done in 2022 over in Japan. In the West, we basically kind of just hard carried it as long as we could, but eventually it's like they finally, I guess you could argue, they finally killed the format, as weird as that is to say. So whether you're among the cult following for this neglected, maligned, and over-triggerless format, or someone who still spits venom with every mention of its name due to the irreparable damage it dealt to Vanguard's already murky public image, the death of V Premium and the methods by which Bushiroad manufactured its end of service is very relevant to you and I as long-term players. And keep in mind that this is very much a long-term player format. If you're a standard player who has only been around since Yu Yu Kondo first appeared on the scene, when Farina was the main deck of the game, you probably have no context about how impactful these changes are to the rest of the game, because all you know is standard. And that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's important to also know the history of the game you're also in, too. So this is pretty important read. So this cold shoulder approach, can not only be seen in the systematic deprivation of new, meaningful V Premium cards, but bleeds into other aspects of the IP, from the would-be simulator turned $200+ cash grab, the continued preservation of the mechanic keeping Card Vanguard from being taken seriously as a competitively viable TCG, and yes, even the current state, treatment, and systematic poaching of the game's one and only eternal format. The death of V Premium and mismanagement of Dear Days are very, very illustrative of the direction Premium finds itself heading in. So in this post, I want to address the ways in which the company has been slowly but surely chipping away at the premium format's mindshare in the larger community, and why I believe that the common sentiment of they'll never get rid of the game's eternal format holds no meaning in the current environment, when they don't need to get rid of it for it to become irrelevant. And that is the main thesis of this whole thing. It is straight up, Bushiroad is effectively for 2 years taking a cold shoulder to everything when it doesn't work out or is served its purpose, and basically just kind of tries to remove it from the cultural zeitgeist of the player base and the fan base, to basically just kind of fades in obscurity. Eventually, as more new players come into the game, they won't have any context with the old game. They won't know anything about V or Premium or G. Right? They will only know Yu Yu, they will only know Akina, they will only know Now, they only know Megami, Donji, Mikoto, Masanori. They will only know that. They will only know Chris Rain, Varga, and ironically Shiranui. I don't know what to say. So the whole point is the current state of how Bushiroad handles kind of fade away is the main point. So let's go with the first point they make. D-Series card design does not equal premium support. Let me make one thing clear. Standard and Premium are two fundamentally different card games that just so happen to share the name Cardfight Vanguard. And if you played any of these formats, Standard, Premium, V, that's basically true. They do have the same mechanics, the same kind of skeleton, but the body itself is just slightly different in aspects that they might as well be different games themselves, which I think is cool because that represents the era they were made in, right? From the lack of a ride deck and energy generator to the average gap in raw power and stat lines between D and Premium cards, the only standard cards that find their way into Premium are undoubtedly happy accidents with no regard for what they could do outside of Standard, because that would restrict their available design space. And frankly, even if the right deck and energy were implemented in Premium, I'm not convinced that they'd achieve anything other than making prohibitively expensive cards like Energy Cyclers even pricier, if a niche deck like Hanzo having disastrous effects on Folktale's price all the way back in DBT05 was an indication. To say nothing of Elementary Sanctitude becoming a premium staple on its reveal, despite it realistically only being intended for use against a small handful of Grade 4 standard decks, which is true. Elementary Sanctitude was technically made for dealing with the Grade 4 decks, which were released in DBT04, which, were pretty strong at the time. They were very much strong, so having a PG that goes against decks that have natural triple drive was the original thing. However, because Premium exists, in which every deck has triple drive on a Grade 4, it effectively then means that now that card, which realistically would have been like $5-10 on the secondary market, ended up being way more expensive than it was, thus resulting in the unfortunate increase in price that happened with the set they were released in, which was the Leonore, Jeweled, and Youthberg trial decks, which caused those decks to spike, which create a whole different situation, which is a hot mess. So whether or not this dividing line between D and Premium card design philosophy was intentional or not from the start, the fact of the matter is that it serves to further distance Premium from the premier way Bushiroad wants you to play Vanguard. And the wider that gap between formats becomes, the less likely it'll be that established standard players will ever be inclined to step out of their comfort zone and take the plunge into Premium. And they kind of, and what's interesting is that they do kind of like this little poem in the thing. So I'm gonna skip over that. It's still pretty good and things, so I recommend you read it. But pretty much yes. There's very much a hard dividing line between D and Premium, and very much V. I think that's kind of one of the aspects of V I'll get to in a second, is that the game in Standard is developed differently to a point where they are different games. And even if you do add them, they more so just potentially increase the already hard price that currently exists with the game, right? Vanguard is probably cheaper than it was the last time, say, Deckflare did his video on the prices in Vanguard, which is much cheaper now, but it's still not exactly some sort of super cheap game, So making it so that these cards are available to be fully enabled in Premium, that kind of would cause a problem. And, I don't know, right? And that would probably put a lot of things out of whack. So, while I understand why they've done it, it also pretty much just kind of hurts things. So, here's the second point. Stride deck sets do not equal Premium support. Stride's deck sets are not a gateway to get Standard players into Premium, but they are a gateway to get Premium players into Standard. And let's read the thesis here. When the Chrono Jet deck set released with only one Mazinger Dragon and priced people out of the deck in Premium, it could have been written off as an oversight by virtue of it being the first Stride deck set, which, fair. When the Messiah deck set released with only one Asleep Messiah, it could have been written off as a matter of the feedback not reaching the right departments in time before the printing process began if you were willing to be lenient. But when both Luard and Shiranui released with only one Mies and Sezui each, nearly a full year later, we can no longer give the people responsible for designing these decks the benefit of the doubt. So you can interpret this in one of two ways, which very much is true, which is hilarious, because when the, I believe it was the Jet decks, I don't know if it was the Jet one or the Messiah one, but when they came out, they changed how the deck set were, because they added in either the grade 2 into the new grade 2 into the mix, or more of the grade 3. I'm trying to remember what changed exactly. I'll probably put it up in the full edited version. And it was just straight up this was a lot, this was an actual change they made, but they didn't change the grade 1 in the Stride deck sets to be more than just one copy for Premium players. They didn't actually change that, which is very odd if you think about it in the context of these are cards for premium, right? These are cards that are meant to be standard premium legal. Why is the arguably most important card in the deck not bumped up to 4 so that premium players don't have to shell out a bunch of money? And well, this is probably the answer. Either they designed them in this way to coerce premium players into spending extra money on potentially their only standard purchase of the year via extra deck sets, or the existence of the crest grade ones is simply meant to put a standard deck in premium players' hands so they have no excuse for not playing when their locals are inevitably overtaken by standard only players that are new to the IP as a whole. And frankly, I just can't sign off on the former, mainly because Bushiroad would be able to make far more money by getting those premium players into a format that receives an overabundance of product as opposed to trying to fleece them for extra deck set sales. Which I somewhat agree. I think you could make an argument that it's probably both. Because, at least for the early stages, like, okay, you still have to buy 4. That's still, like, if the premium deck is like $50, $60, that's about, $200 you get from people who just want that crest. You get a short-term influx that will eventually lead into a long-term investment back to the standard, because like he says, eventually when these locals come in and Vanguard starts to recover or gets bigger again, standard players will eventually come back, meaning that eventually you will have to deal with that. Eventually your premium player base will be smaller and smaller as the standard player base increases, right? As much as hard as it's been hard to do that, but that's, I guess you could say, it's like you get that short-term money, that short-term influx of money from the premium players who are still believing that premium will still be supported, but eventually it will come to the point where they will have to make a decision on whether or not they should still either, if they want to play Vanguard, they have to play Standard, or you might as well just go into a different game. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth later, but that's just kind of an important thought right there. I wouldn't say former because that's still money, right? That's still an influx of short-term money for a long-term investment. It's arguably both. Not to mention that with a pile of triggers and PGs in hand, they'll have a foundation that can transition to virtually any other deck in their clan's nation if and when they finally get fatigued from one-tricking their GR boss, or whenever powerful stables get their stride deck hit on the restriction list, whichever comes first. I mean, yeah, it's like, you could one-trick Jet all you want, but eventually you have the necessary staples to transition to, say, Jeweled or upcoming Leo Odium. You have a lot of those possibilities for that, right? So let's go to part 3. Oh, they kind of put this right here, right? The whole point of this little segment is supposed to be kind of like a thought of the fallacy that exists, right? You know, after all, secondary support is ID. That's the point. So next, Strider Riders do not equal premium support. Carbide Vanguard is notorious for releasing far too much product in any given year for LGS to feasibly keep up with. Kinda. I think very much there are like periods of time where they take a break, and I think that early era in when Standard or D era started, there was less product going around. It was very much a every 2 to 3 months type of deal for main sets, so it wasn't that bad. I think it has ramped up recently, as like we're getting main sets like almost back to every month now, at least here in the West, which I don't know how to feel about that exactly, but it is what it is right now. I feel like that's another topic of discussion. So sets are lucky if they get even 3 weeks to breathe and sell in English before sneak peek time rolls around and functionally brings the previous meta to premature end in the minds of players. To say nothing of when expressive pre-builts like Stride deck sets are stacked on top of main set or festival releases, which again that's also a fair point to make. Like when a new set releases every month, it's like the meta didn't have time to breathe. I think that's also, I think that also might have to deal with either, here in the West, it's less of it didn't have time to breathe, more like we already kind of had the meta quote unquote solved by the time they released, because they released in such a period of time independent of Japan, so like later than Japan does. So we already basically know what the meta is. So that's that whole thing there. So you might think that has no bearing on the lack of new G units in recent years, but if I may be so bold, I beg to differ. Standard already has far too much product as it is, and we have no reason to believe that the people responsible for designing all of that product aren't also responsible for designing cards for the other two formats as well, from premium collections to reshop promos. I mean, that is also true. I feel like they wouldn't have like two different design teams just specifically for premium and V, and then a team for standard, right? That wouldn't make sense, right? Like that's like a lot of people to hire for no real reason. I don't know how to support Pushy Road at premium ends. We will talk about that in a second. So imagine being in those designer shoes. You're neck deep in playtesting and balancing the latest standard sets, and pushing the bounds of the format's design space and creativity, only to be told that you're responsible for supporting 24 different clans you have next to no experience testing for, with brand new strides and G-Guardians that won't snap the format like a twig the way Katrina and Ichikishima did on release. On top of your pre-existing workload, I would bet money that working on Premium Clan Collection 2022 was an incredibly stressful project that probably didn't end up paying off on the Japanese side of the game as nearly as well as Pusher hoped it would. I think that's a fair assessment to make, because to say pretty much like, I think the 2022 Premium Clan Collection was very much like trying not to break the game, but also very much was meant to kind of work with as generic as possible for most of these decks. And you could tell at points, it's like, yeah, these are definitely good cards, but I feel like some decks just kind of got left out still. And that's more just because in the years since, right, in the years in between Premium and V, clans basically had a change depending on what they were. Like Tachikaze got equipped gauges. Spike Brothers wasn't just entirely based on what Spike Brothers did. Neo Nectar is the prime example of this. Neo Nectar basically has 3 new mechanics that the G variant didn't have. So that's like a whole. They had plant tokens, then you had the Ashifari Fire tokens, they had the super plant tokens. So it's like that's a lot of stuff to really work with, and it's hard to really deal with. Not including like potential musketeers being like supported as well. So it's very hard to really be like, I can understand, like, yeah, they were pretty much like probably as hard as they could to work on these strides as well as they could. I think they did a good job, to be honest. But if like you have if you're like a whole new team, it's like, what do you do? So when it came time to make good on promise to support Premium the following year, do you really think the decision to sell sets spearheaded by 49 copy and paste erratas with old art and a slew of poorly distributed reprints was motivated by creativity or a passion for the format? Or was it a time and cost-effective cop-out that pandered to the nostalgia old fans, appeased LGSs and backpack vendors, with likely dozens of these pre-routed strides and critical triggers sitting in their bulk boxes, and let the design team get back to only caring about standard for a year? I think we all know the answer. And yeah, I think that's the best way to say. I got this collection like right there. I want to get up and get the box, but pretty much like, yeah, it was effectively just a glorified reprint set with a bunch of erratas for cards that are basically bulk, right? It was meant to kind of, arguably outside of the alt art high rarity stuff, the only stuff that was really there was the new erratas and Harmonix Messiah getting that super errata that effectively turned it into a $80 staple. There's no easy way to say it. It was lazy. It wasn't lazy, but it was still lazy enough where they could say, hey, we support premium, we technically support a V, hey, we're good. Anyway, back to standard. Time to make the worst Keter deck imaginable. And the year after that, hell, why bother attempting to support all 24 clans at all anymore? History Collection, clearly selling well enough relative to the low investment required to produce it, proved to Bushiroad JP that new and original cards aren't necessary to appease Premium's player base anymore. So they had no incentive to invest any more than the bare minimum to just barely keep a promise that may as well be written on a dry erase board at this point. I mean, basically so. It's like, there's a lot of things that when Keita Mori originally took over, effectively have been thrown away. Either because a change in direction, which obviously makes sense, or some other, mostly just a change in direction, I would guess say. So now we get to the part that I think we kind of differ on, but still somewhat agree at the end, is no V premium support equals no premium support. And they say this. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. For the vast majority of its lifespan, I valued V Premium not as its own format with its own merits, but as simply a means by which main deck cards that are appropriate for Premium's environment will continue to be printed at a barely serviceable rate. At my core, I am one of those people that loathes what Vanguard became as a result of V, to the point that I consider it both poetic and cruel that said reboot was announced on my birthday that year, which, I'm sorry. Like, that is painful. I'm sorry. With the exception of VEB07 Messiah, it was only towards the tail end of its life with decks like Glenios and Risers that I found myself taking anything resembling a shine to it as a budget-friendly reprieve from the older formats. Which, I guess we could kind of talk about that part we disagree with. I always liked V as its own format. I've always had this kinship to it, this feeling of positivity towards it. It's had here and there, but I've always had like happy moments with V. I think there's been some issues with it, and very much so. It's never been perfect, but it's been something I've really enjoyed, and I like the gift system, even if it did eventually just devolve into Excel format. But at the end of the day, I think there was just something I liked about that than I did. Like, I would rather go through the entire V again than the early stages of Overdress again. Right up until like the end of Wildress, I would rather go through V entirely again rather than go through Overdress and Wildress again. It just would be a lot more appealing for me, not just because of nostalgia, because of just how I just feel like D didn't work to me. But ultimately, but to say that there were people who were upset with V and definitely became disenfranchised with the game, and I completely understand that, because that is a lot to kind of deal with, about how certain things happen, especially during the tail end of V, where we got to the G boot, and it's just like we just kept going with like the amount of power creep that happened, to the point where we eventually had Luard, which, oh god, Luard, like there's so many videos that talk about Luard in V and how its impact is still being felt to this day. So I completely understand if you didn't love V, but I think this next paragraph is going to explain why this animosity towards V might end up hurting the legacy format as a whole. So let's kind of get into it. But ultimately, in a game whose primary format already produces far too much product, even half-heartedly supporting two other formats on top of that was simply never going to be tenable. Something needed to give when product calendars were already packed, and BSF's implementation of tri-regulation had made it abundantly clear that Bushiroad's competitive events have a hard cap of 2 games per day across 2 days. And as we established, DV and Premium are functionally 3 different games in a trench coat on top of Shadows Evolve and White Schwartz. And for those who don't know, BSF is Bushiroad Springfest, which is the the more casual tournament scene where you team up with your friends of 3 and you play a whole team tournament, right? Very akin to how a lot of tournaments in Japan do it, right? So this is more so the kind of Japan era tournament, right? So if the choice is between an awkward middle child that's long since been abandoned by the company and the people, let's kind of say what it is. I think the player base also abandoned V without realizing why. I think either because they legitimately didn't like it, which again valid, or they had no idea the eventual impact it would bring. I think a lot of people just abandoned the format, especially when it was originally said as like, oh, V will be its own unique format. It won't get support for premium. It won't get cards from D to access. It will just be V cards and V cards only. Which, if you understand what happened with G format, one of the things about G format was that eventually it would get stale and there'd be no point supporting it. Which is effectively what happened with V in the end. They effectively put it in G format, and basically just stopped supporting it directly, to the point where now it's basically just the way G format became, where it's like no one's playing that. Not to mention they didn't give any tournaments to either V or Premium, so that is pretty much hard. It's like, who wants to play a format you don't have tournaments for? Nobody. So here's the thing. So, and the only format that lets people play with their old cards, well, the decision is painfully clear. But while I don't feel any real sense of loss for the format itself, since I can simply play V-Decks and Premium, which I kind of somewhat disagree. I think there are some V-Decks that just literally can't be played in Premium. At least not right now. Probably ever, depending on how things go. The fact that a product line dedicated to printing new and reimagined cards directly into the internal format, with that format mostly in mind, simply doesn't exist anymore is a complicated feeling. This is the one talking point where I find myself generally conflicted as to whether or not this instance of starvation tactics was a result of Bushiroad wanting to silently choke the life out of V so everyone would move on to D, or basically a different card game altogether. I mean, that is pretty much true. The whole idea is pretty much, if you let V go, it's like, and then suddenly it's like the V players now have to decide, do you want to go to Premium, or do you want to go Overdress, or do you want to play a whole different game in the Stratosphere? Do you want to play Shadows Evolve? Do you want to play Weiss? Or do you just want to get out entirely, right? It's like, because of the data that came up with, thanks to Sage and everybody doing data on tournament production, it's like, well, if you leave, it's not that big of a loss. Right? It's like, oh, if you leave, it's like, there are only 80 of you anyway. We got 500 people showing up for tournaments, right? We're capping out our Springfest, our WGPs in Japan. We're not really going to feel a negligible loss if you, who are holding out for a format no one liked, or rather the majority of people appear to have not liked, then you know what, you aren't really factoring into the money anyway. In the name of bolstering profits above all else, or because they recognize that need to be on the chopping block for decidedly less manipulative and greedy reasons. Again, like I said earlier, it's probably a situation of both. I feel like, again, if the player base for V was so low, it's like, it's very needlessly, and we'd rather you just come into a format where you're going to spend money instead of hoping for something that they know straight up isn't gonna come anymore. And if you don't show up to a Bushiroad game, there was so little of you, it ends up being a non-factor in the end result anyway, because we're capping out. People are playing standard everywhere. The whole point is to be like, oh, we did it, and it's like, yeah, no, we got it. Oh, okay, the music changed, that's what happened. Hilariously pointing. That also tells you how long I've been talking. uh, so again, it could be both. It could be just straight up like, yeah, they want you to come. Like, if we have to make a decision that works for the benefit of the game itself, we have to do this. And it then means we get more money from those players because now they have to go either to standard, to premium, maybe, or premium, which means that they don't have a premium deck. Guess what? Guess what we got? A strike deck set. They can buy a strike deck set with a deck they probably have already used in premium. Take it over to premium, and when premium eventually gets kicked, you can then come to the standard, right? Because you have that. So there's again, at the end of the day, it's both. I'm not entirely convinced there was an ideal solution to be made in this scenario. Granting life to V by the will of our JB overlords in an attempt to resurrect premium at the price of further bloating LGS stock, or definitively laying V to rest to free up quote-unquote standards calendar at a cost of premium functionality becoming a historic format in the same vein as Edison or TOS and Yu-Gi-Oh! As opposed to being a truly eternal one. Neither one feels particularly satisfying. I'll be right back. Apologies, guys. So, neither one feels particularly satisfying. Well, yeah, that's pretty much true. It's like, you can't. If they want to keep doing the way standard is, they have to either lower the amount of standard sets released, which I think would be a good idea to fit in V support. Which, if you don't hold tournaments for it, no one is going to actually buy it. I think it's the biggest problem is that they don't want to support it in terms of competitive, which is why V pretty much like doesn't sell. It's like if you don't have competitive tournaments for it enough to make it like worthwhile, no one's going to actually play the format. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a continuous cycle of feedback loop of if we don't support this, then this ain't gonna happen. And if this doesn't happen, we're not gonna support it. So it's like it effectively just like choked itself out. So all you had to do is lay V to rest to free up standards calendar, which they already did for 2 years, right? They basically did that for a year and a half to 2 years. It's like once V Collection 6 dropped, that was it. All you got was promo cards, which don't count. I'm sorry, these jank like promo cards, which let me see if I can find them. Yeah, like you have these basically cards that are just um, basically equivalent of like ride deck fixers and what are called the Amber clones, and then you've got these sorry. I don't know if I actually have any in here, but like those new promos, which are basically just G guards, they don't work. They aren't even there because half of them don't want them, and their decks that do want them don't really have the space to put them. Or your Murakumo, and you can't do either because your G guards suck. So let's go to the final part. And ultimately, I don't know what we as players or even Bushiroad English can do in regards to neglect that premium is currently suffering from. I've said as much back in my posts about the state of the game as a whole, but I don't exactly consider this issue something that will see meaningful change. It's clear that the English side doesn't have the authority to print original, mechanically unique cards to pull the weight that Bushiroad JB clearly won't. As Divines continues to ramp up in quality and attract new players that tip the already uneven balance of standard and premium, it seems almost inevitable that the voices that care about the game's eternal format will be drowned out by the poor Japanese premium sales and a host of new blood eager to fire off divine skills that look cool in the anime. And for the record, I consider myself one of those people, despite having many rounds as JP's BTO4 and comic style. Divines has managed to reunite a passion for Vanguard in me that I didn't think was even possible after the tail end of V, the bulk of COVID, and after contending with a toxic feud among my old online local community. But part of me does feel bad that the spark might come at the cost of starting a flame that could burn down everything that led us to this point. The company may want us to only embrace the past when it's something they can monetize indeed, but I'd like it if a lot of the format that represents the beginning for a significant number of us fighters were treated with respect it deserves. And I think this final line here is there. It's still here, though, and it's gradually getting brighter, if only marginally. But through the steps taken towards that future need to come at the cost of our own origin. At the cost of our origin. The very reason we're here to experience that new future to begin with, I just don't know anymore. And I think that's the best way to kind of put it. I don't think there's anything we can do. Because the situation it's already started. It's already too late. Or rather, it has become close to too late. For the amount of people that say we want premium to be supported. Most of those same people, and I'm not trying to generalize everybody, but most of those same people also said, but we also don't want V supported. But when you realize that V was, for the most part, the bulk of the support for premium as well, because standard cards are either too weak to really fix, to really add into the card pool of premium, or they're specifically being designed to not work in premium, then it very much comes in like there's nothing else for premium, and now premium is effectively being choked out as well. So, in a way, that's why I'm also ticked off, because everybody who's talking about V needs to die, V ship is gone, I don't know if you realize the actual implications going forward, and that if V dies, then there's nothing for premium. And if premium dies, what are you going to do? You delayed standard for 5 years. You federally didn't want to play standard for 5 years. What are you going to do when premium is replaced by a game, say like the quintessential quintuplets, the Dream Order, or the upcoming Hololive TCG that Bushiroad is all making? And if one of those comes to the West and is able to survive for at least a year, which I would suspect the Hololive one is going to come through and survive a year, what happens then? They're not going to get rid of Vanguard Standard. They're not going to get rid of Shadows Evolve unless it actually dies out. They're definitely not getting White Schwartz. So something's got to give there. And guess what is left on the chopping block? And spoilers, it ain't V, because it's a side event now. It might not even be a side event next year. So now I really want this to be known, because it's something important and emotionally like impactful for me because I basically watched as people I do respect, I still am friends with. This ain't nothing that's gonna be like, oh, I can't be friends with you because you hate my format. No, this ain't there. But watching them basically shit talk a format I cared about, a format that actually does have a lot of weight to it overall, and then watch it die for 2 years. Still wanting to support it, still want to care for it, and then watch it die, and people to celebrate that. I understand you didn't have the best outlook on V, but if you like premium, then you needed that shit to survive. Because now premium is also on the chopping block. Are you going to fight for it there? You better. And English doesn't do anything. We've basically gone about 2, 3. I don't even remember the last time we've got a actual updated an updated ban list for anything not standard. And anything from standard is just rehashes of what Japan got. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is, and what the article basically says is, standard is probably in the best state it's ever been. And it probably will continue to keep getting better. But it potentially comes at the cost of Vanguard's legacy, its eternal formats, basically being snuffed out. And it already happened. They can do it. They can do it again. They did it with V. They will do it with Premium if they choose that Premium is not worth it. Now it's really just like, do you want Premium to stay? You have to fight for it. And that's kind of the big discussion topic ever. It's like, you have to fight for your format, because what happens when that Hololive TCG comes out in the West and Shadowverse is still going and Weiss is still going? There's only so much you can do. So I know this is kind of like the darker part, but it's very much a darker discussion because this is something that just will happen. And only us as players can stop it. But even then, what now? So, I think at the end of the day, keep playing your games, keep playing your formats. If you want to play V, still play V. Go to those side event tournaments and get your prize support. If you're still playing Premium, go to Premium, play your support, try and make it to Worlds. If you like Standard, keep playing Standard, get to Worlds. But I don't want to sit here and come back almost a year or two later as Premium doesn't get competitive support, Premium doesn't get cards anymore that really impact it, and you're upset when you saw the signs happen with a format you didn't like. I know this is, that kind of got really frustrating, and I apologize, but that's just how I feel. Let me know your comments. Let me know in the comments what you think, and again, see you on our stream or see you next video. Thanks. Bye bye. I have to edit that one. Okay. Whew, that was long. The I was trying to close out the video, so I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Z. The question always becomes, what happens with Standard inevitably takes a dip in quality, and there's no alt formats left to escape to. It's the let me find that video. Let me find this video. How do you, see, let me find this video. The one. No, it's not the one. Yeah, here we go. This is the one. I think this one basically would exemplify this RDC World skit. Pretty much is the definition of
The details of his hair.
800,000 views. 800,000?
I think this would be the best part. Put it.
5,000?
Oh, nigga.
Yeah, man, this game is live. Graphics are good. I'm not really sure what I'm doing though.
Today?
Man, oh, let me see.
See this shit. Let's go, come on, that's me! That's me, guys, you can't beat me! Man, let's go, come on! Is that?
I did.
Chat! Man, stop that fucking line. Make the game! What's the budget on the game?
Yes.
Give me 1 second. Let me check.
Bitch ass out. Hey, but
Let me see. I'm trying to find the actual like clip itself because it's important.
Just me, man.
just man, swear to God.
All right,
Swear to God, man. Just
I'm trying to find that.
Homie.
I'm sorry.
What y'all think, Chad?
Into development. Come on now, man.
They really put some.
Today? Yep. Oh, come on, let's go!
This the game, man. This. We put 415 million in it.
I'm trying to find it. I'm trying to find it. Hold on.
Jump into the middle. First one to the. We put our whole life savings into that game.
Took like 20 years to make the game.
Bro, bro, I put my kids' whole tuition into that.
So what are we gonna do?
Here we go. Here we go.
What you want? What you gonna do?
Die, I don't know, nigga. I don't.
That's it right there. Oh, I wasn't even on the right thing. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think it's right here. This, to answer your question, is basically this.
Bro, I put my kids' whole tuition into that. My wife and I put my house into that.
So what? So what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? What you want? What you gonna do?
Die, I don't know, nigga. I don't know.
That's basically it. It's like if that's the best way to put it. It's like, yeah, what happens when Standard takes a dip and there's no all forms up to? Die. That's basically the best way to put it. It's like when if Standard like doesn't solidify itself in any position that's like, yeah, we can do it. Like, yeah, no, you're basically gonna be that. It's like you ain't got nothing. And at that point, there's nothing else to do. You're going to play Showers Evolve, White Schwartz, or just dip completely. Because you still don't like. I would say if you have not gotten into Standard by next year, it's up. I don't know what else you could do. I don't know what else you could do. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you, ZRG, for the article. I should have probably given you that during the end of the video. I was just trying to wrap it up quickly because someone came up, so I gotta kind of wrap it up. Also, you Gunmetal Gator, I don't know how I would support Bushiroad Premium ends. I would argue you would have to figure it out. I don't want to be rude as I only mean or upset or anything like that. I'm not trying to be like, this, but it's pretty much just like you would have to kind of start figuring out now. Because like I said in the end of the video, either you prepare to move to a different game, you prepare to move to Standard, or you actually like fight to say, hey, we still want these events to happen. We still want premium support that isn't just functional erratas in terms of those crests or the stride deck sets. Like, we want actual like support for the format we enjoy and love. Because at the end of the day, it's like that's what they're gonna say to. The money is what at the end of the day Bushiroad is going to see. And if they ain't getting an investment, then there's nothing else to say. There's nothing else to do. Right? And as much as like, oh, well, we don't have tournaments. Well, English has it. Like, English has tournaments. English should be spending boatloads of money on this stuff. So that's why it's like, and they do say it's like, yeah, a lot of our sales have gone from overseas now. So very much does matter. So I think at the end of the day, say this. I think at the end of the day, how you as how the player base reacts to it and puts the money into it matters more than anything. Because just saying, oh, we want premium support is not going to be enough if the money is. I good. Appreciate you reading it. My condolences for the amount of run-on sentence in my waxy poetic. Hey, it's not a problem. It's no problem, man. It's like it was still like it was still a good read. It was still perfectly fine. Just I think it was pretty much something that I think it's funny because I was literally like writing up like a base script for it, and one for the fact that I've got like something to do this whole weekend, I probably would have recorded this video normally. But it just happened that you basically like that night you just basically put a lot of your thoughts in there. Now, obviously, I disagree with you in how you feel about V, but that is entirely something I can't be critical of. That's more so just you and me having different thoughts on it, right? So I can't really be like, oh, this is your, oh, you're wrong for not liking it. Like it's not right to say that, So I've got this last thing. I got this thing I need to take care of. So that is basically it for the stream. I'm going to attempt to try and stream a little bit more. I'm probably gonna say like the next stream is gonna be on Twitch. I think sometimes next week is gonna be something about like I'm probably gonna like go on to Dear Days, gonna get some, just kind of look it up a little bit more, and then we're actually gonna finally I'm gonna start the process of, I've got like so many ideas I want, and I'm just like, procrastination hits me. I still have this Trills video I want to do on Angie from Cold Steel. I have like other discussion videos I want to do. Like I want to finally get my second channel up and running a bit more. I wanted to talk more about. I didn't even get to talk about Bowsprit Saga like I thought I was going to talk about. I thought I was going to have time to talk about, but I'm on like a crunch here. So I'll probably also be like, save that for next time too. So, whew. I've got so many ideas in my head, but the procrastination just keeps hitting, right? It's like, man, I want to do this, I want to do this, but I also want to play Tekken though. I want to play some Guilty Gear. I still have some want to play League of Legends, which is crazy. So it's like, it very much is like, I have so much I want to do. It's just so much I want to do, and like, I don't know if that's ADHD. I don't know if that's just, I don't know what it is. But it was just like, man, I've got so many ideas I want to do. But that's basically it for the stream, guys. Again, thank you for tuning in. Again, I will try to set up something for next week. We'll probably finally look into Dear Days again. It's been almost a year or two since it dropped, so I want to do a video kind of like just actually looking into Dear Days since the anniversary, and kind of just like giving my I guess my eulogy of Dear Days, because unless something changes, it's very obvious they are not going to support that game anymore, and I don't know what they're gonna do, because I was looking at that financial report and the fact that one of their big cash cows like Revue Starlight also ended their mobile game. Ain't exactly positive news, but it all depends on how things go. So that's pretty much it. Thank y'all so much for showing up. Once again, thanks to ZRG for the article, and I will try to I'll probably just like hard accelerate this when I come back to get this video up.